The purpose of our lives is to be happy. Dalai Lama. Hey Hustlers, Christian here, host of The Hustle Show. Thank you so very much for tuning in today on episode 16. It's an amazing journey that we are already doing episode 16, and I'm super pumped to have you here. I'm thrilled. If you're new to the show, you're very welcome to the Hustle Show community. It's been an incredible journey, and if you're coming back to this episode, you've been watching me grow as a podcast host and as a person, learning from all the successful stories that we are sharing with you. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's been very life-changing to hear all these stories, and I hope you're getting a lot of value out of them and you're getting some motivation from them. And on today's episode is no different. We have Mike Flynn from the Impact Entrepreneur podcast, and the story that he's going to share with us today is very inspiring, because I think it's very important when you go into business, or if you're already into business, it's very easy to lose your purpose in life, and rather than living a fulfilled life, you focus on the thing, or on the money, on the profit, and that's just like a rabbit hole, because once you get that thing, you're gonna want the next thing and the next thing, and you eventually will be a millionaire, but you will also live a very miserable life. And that is exactly what Mike Flynn is going to talk to us about. He's been an entrepreneur for 13 years. He's the owner of Flynn Wealth Management and the founder of the Impact Entrepreneur podcast. And through all his journey as a financial advisor, he realized that the greatest crisis of people is not about money and wealth, but it's a crisis of purpose, is that we lose the why of why we do things. And so I'm very excited to share his story today with you. And remember that all the show notes for this episode, you can find them at thehustleshow.co/TSH16, along with our free book club, where we review books and we share with you some of our favorite entrepreneurial books and many other things that we're working on to bring in for free to you. Okay, so make sure that you check that out, check the show notes. And before we jump into the call with Mike Flynn, I would love for you to subscribe to the show right now. Either you're watching this on our YouTube channel or you are listening on the go on our Audio Experience podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, okay? Because you will be helping a lot of other people to find the show and to find all the motivational, inspirational journeys and stories that we share here at the Hustle Show. And when you subscribe to the show, you are basically telling iTunes and YouTube that we're worthy of your time, and that we are something valuable for other people to find, okay? So without further ado, let's jump in the call with Mike Flynn from the Impact Entrepreneur podcast. All right, Hustler. So in today's episode, we have Mike Flynn. Welcome, Mike.
What is up, man? I'm pumped to be on the Hustle Show.
We are very thrilled to have you here, man. Very excited. I'm looking forward for sharing your story and hearing the behind the scenes of Mike Flynn.
Yes.
I know you've been an entrepreneur for 13 years. It's a long journey. I'm sure you've had a lot of ups and downs and valleys and mountains and struggles. All that good stuff, man. And what caught my attention is you were in financial services, and you realized that people's problem is not about financial money, but their purpose. So
right.
How did you come up with that?
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah, so I'm still in the financial services business. It's my main business is a family business that I co-operate called Flynn Wealth Strategies, and I've been doing that. My dad started that 30 years ago, and I've been doing it for 13 years or so. And what I've discovered in the process is that the reality is that people don't struggle necessarily with a lack of finances, but rather they struggle with a lack of purpose. And to be honest with you, some of that realization came from my own place of personal pain. So I started in the business in 2005 full time, and it was amazing right out of the gates. I had come from a brief career in the corporate world, and it was the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and things were great. And then along comes 2008, and we have the financial crisis. 2008, 2009, we start to recover. And I didn't really feel any of the recovery until about 2000, late 2010, early 2011. And I was just struggling personally, mentally, emotionally, physically with just life at that point. I was married to my childhood sweetheart. We had 4 kids by 2010. And I had been pursuing all of the wrong things. I had been pursuing money and assets and accolades and status when all of those things, none of those things were serving me mentally, spiritually, emotionally. In fact, they were stealing from me because I was working to keep up with those things and to build those things. And I started to realize that what I really need to focus on and what all of my clients are actually focusing on, whether they know it or not, is finding and developing their true purpose and potential.
I love that. And, I think we had a little bit, a little conversation before of how I told you that was, you're basically describing the last few years of my life, going after trends and trying to, build a new revenue stream, building a new business, going after money and just trying to, try to make more. But for me, it felt like a rabbit hole. It felt like the more you have, the more you want, and the more you get into it and you forget about everything else. And that's, I got so inspired with what you were doing and your story, because trying to find my passion is how I came up with the show. And that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And that's number one reason why I'm doing it. So when I heard your story, is like, hustlers need to listen to this, because it's money is good and everybody needs to make money. And, I'm not saying not, but, make sure you go after what makes you happy and what fulfills you in life.
Right. Absolutely. And, I there's a couple things I just want to say, because I mean, it's become a little bit of a cliche, but you need to really understand your why. You need to understand why you're doing something. And you need to ask yourself, okay, your show is called The Hustle Show. Well, if I'm going to hustle, to what end? Why am I doing it? What is this for? And what is it that I'm trying to create? If you're doing it just to be like, you're trying to, live up to Gary Vee's standards, that's not a good enough reason to hustle and to grind and to lose sleep and to miss out on opportunities. Because guess what? You use the word passion. I'm very passionate about the meaning of words and their impact on our mindset and in the way that we live our life. And the word passion is a Latin rooted word, passeo, and it literally means the willingness to suffer for something. So when you say, I'm passionate about this or I'm passionate about that, what you are saying, whether you know it or not, is that you're willing to suffer for whatever it is that you're doing. And if you just look at life, every decision that we make has a cost attached to it. There is a transaction that is involved. We're choosing option A over option B, and we're either gaining something or giving something up in exchange for that decision. And it's very simple. So when you choose to do something, like right now, you and I are having this conversation, I am missing another conversation I could be having because I made this a priority, right? So there's a sacrifice that's happening there. And you have to ask yourself, am I willing to suffer for that sacrifice? And in this case, I am, because you know what? I believe that I believe that your listeners, I believe that myself, we're all created by a God who loves us. And number two, who wants us to live up to our full God-given potential, which is beyond what we think that we're capable of achieving, and we can even ask for or possibly imagine. So if I can lean into that belief, even if you don't believe in God, but if you believe that you're created to do big things, you should lean into that belief and develop the mindset and the skill set and take advantage of opportunities that are in front of you, but understanding that you need to be willing to suffer for the things that you choose to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, I agree with every word that you say. And to everybody that is listening, there's always, that exchange that you're talking about. There's always a cause. There's always a price. It doesn't have to be money. It has to be, in your case, you were saying that you're getting ready for a family vacation. Kids are in home. You could be, enjoying kids time right now instead of talking to me. So that's your cost right now.
Yep. Yep.
Same for me. I mean, I could be doing something else, but I'd rather be with you. And I'm willing to sacrifice that so that other people can hear your story and your background. And it totally makes sense. And I'm very excited to start digging into what how did the idea came for the Impact Entrepreneur, the podcast, the book, the whole platform. How was that transition from going through from a family business that was doing well into this venture? What was the idea there?
Yeah. So I mean, the family business is still going. That's my full-time gig. And I went in 2000 in the middle of a financial crisis. I was like, gosh, I got to start doing some different things. I got to start thinking differently. I got to start exposing myself to some different industries. And so a friend of mine invited me to a Brendan Bouchard event. Do you know who Brendan Bouchard is? He's an amazing leader and trainer, and you need to check him out. And my friend invited me to go to a thing called Experts Academy, which is an event, a multi-day event that Brendan and his team put on, typically in Santa Clara, California. And it was an incredible event. And it made me think very differently about marketing your expertise and how to position things. And up to that point, I had already been a consumer of podcasts. And so the seed was kind of planted, and that was like in 2000, that was in like 2010 that I went to that event. And the seed was planted that I was going to start a podcast. Well, it took about 5 years for me to actually do that, because like most really great entrepreneurs, I went to that event. It was like 4 days. I spent 4 days of my time going to this event, took copious notes, made some great relationships. And then I came back and I did nothing. I went back to the normal, to the old normal thing. Why? Because probably in my subconscious, in the back of my mind, I didn't believe that I was worthy or capable, or that anyone would listen, or that I even had a message worth sharing. Right? And those were all lies that my brain was telling me, so that I could keep my brain in its comfortable little cozy space without taking risks and all of those things. Right? And those are the types of tricks that our brain wants to play on us all the time. But there came a point in 2015, I actually signed up for a goal planning course called Best Year Ever. And I signed up for it in December of 2015. And I laid out 10 different goals that I wanted to achieve in 2016, one of which was launching a podcast. And I knew I wanted to launch a podcast, but I didn't necessarily have the mission of the podcast completely crystallized. And initially, it was going to be a practice management podcast for the financial services industry, but that didn't really inspire me. The word inspire means to breathe life into something. And so that wasn't like something that would get me up in the morning, right? And then I went and I did some internal dialogue with myself, and I said, what do I want to do in life for myself and for others? And the reality is that not only I joined the family business because I want to have a significantly positive impact in the lives of others and help them become the hero of their financial story. But that's not enough for me. I want to move people to believing in what they're capable of achieving, and then give them resources to take action and build stuff and go extend that impact in the world around them. And so that's where the Impact Entrepreneur show and platform was born. And the word impact, people often think when they find my show, they initially discover it for kind of the wrong reason. What happens is people are searching for like social impact, like impact investing or what, like that kind of stuff, like environmental stuff. That's not necessarily what that is not what my show is about. It is about social impact in the sense that the world around us will change when you and I believe and come to know and have what I refer to as an impact moment with our true purpose and our potential. When you think about an impact, something stops and then something else begins. When there's a change in trajectory when that impact moment happens. And my mission in life is to help you and me and my listeners and your listeners have an impact moment and re-engage with their belief in what they're capable of achieving.
That's mind blowing. I mean, I love that. And, the words that you're saying, they're so genuine. And, I agree, 100%. And I hope that all the listeners, understand this and use it towards their advantage, because, you have a purpose in life and it's just a matter of trying to find it. But I think there's, most people don't have the courage to start looking and trying to find it because of what we were talking about earlier. They're in their comfort zone and they're afraid of stepping out of it. And, it doesn't matter what they're doing. If they're comfortable doing that, they want to continue doing that. But I'm so glad you took the action. It took you a few years to get over the fear and the doubt and everything. And now that you look back, are you happy that you took that leap of faith?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, starting, I opened up a whole new network for me. And there's this old saying that your network is your net worth, right? But I actually believe more than anything, your network is your self-worth. Because Jim Rohn used to say, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? So if you're spending your time around super bummed out, negative people, guess what? You're going to be a super bummed out, negative person. And even if you're not, even if you're naturally optimistic and stoked, you are going to be pulled down by that negativity. So you got to get rid of that, right? People talk about all the time, like, don't surround yourself with negative people. And that's true, because your net worth is your self-worth. And you mentioned another word a moment ago called courage. Courage literally means heart. And so when you are feeling discouraged, you are allowing someone or something to take from your heart. And you have to ask yourself, when you are feeling discouraged, what is it that is causing me to feel this way, to feel discouraged? Maybe it's an action that you're taking, a choice that you're making, something that you're allowing another person to do in your life. You have to have the self-awareness. But the reason why people don't want to do things that require courage is because they'd rather do something that makes them feel confident, right? But courage precedes confidence, because confidence literally means with faith, right? Co-fide. And to do something with faith means that you are doing something without doubt. And you can't get to something without doubt unless you had the courage to try something unfamiliar in the first place.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. And I can tell that you are a big fan of the words and their meaning, and it's
huge,
yeah. And I mean, most of the words, to be honest, I mean, I had a guest, I think it was like 3 episodes ago, and he literally researched the meaning for the word hustle. And I was very honest with him. It's like I never research it. I mean, I know I kind of know what it means, but I never exactly knew the meaning. Neither all these words that you're talking about right now, which it's the same thing. I mean, we use them every day, and we believe that we know the meaning. But now that you explain, I mean, they make sense.
Yeah, there's a great book written by a guy named Kevin Hall. Hall. It's called Aspire, Discovering Your Life's Purpose Through the Power of Words. Okay. That book was a life changer for me. I read it during the financial crisis, and it was eye opening. And the reason it was eye opening and the reason why the meaning of words matter is because guess what? When we're not talking to other people, who are we talking to? Ourselves, right? And so if you're using words that have actual meaning, your subconscious knows the meaning of those words. And so if you're saying, "Oh man, if you're by yourself or you're thinking internally in your self-talk, I'm so discouraged. I'm so, I have no passion, or I don't have courage." If you're using these words internally and you're using them in a negative way, your life is going to be dragged down by them. So it's really important to be conscious of the words that you're using, not only with other people but with yourself, because your self-talk is incredibly powerful in inhibiting you or enabling you to take action. And that's why I believe that the words are a precursor to belief in our capability to do great things.
Very cool. I'm gonna have to check that book out, man, because like most hustlers that are listening to us right now, probably one of the hardest thing to overcome is their own mindset and their own negativity and their own thoughts that are crossing their mind, the doubts, the fear, just like you said before, why is people going to think that I'm worthy of their time to listen to my message? Or, who am I to be speaking on a microphone and for them to listen? These were all thoughts in your mind, and to be honest, I mean, it's very hard to control your mindset. You really need to invest in books and work on it. It's like another muscle of your body, and it's another thing that you really need to keep constantly keep working, keep learning, keep dominating. And do you currently, after all these years, are you currently still doing it? Like, you still read? Do you still?
Oh yeah, I've got like my nightstand's got a pile of books on it, and I read a ton. Like I probably have read this year, 15, maybe 20 books, and I'll read another 15 or 20 before the end of the year. One of the problems that entrepreneurs or people in general face in this whole personal development and potential and purpose is that they're looking outside of themselves and for a solution. And the reality is that we possess virtually every skill that we need to succeed in a massive way in the world and in what we're trying to do. And the one thing that you need to develop is self-awareness. So I came up with this framework called the Peak Performance Framework. And P stands for position, E stands for engagement, A for action, and K for kinetic. And we're not going to be able to cover it all like in this chat today because it's like an entire podcast. It's in and of itself. But the most important thing, and they all lead into each other, is position. You cannot do anything unless you're taking care of yourself first. So in order to be properly positioned for success or properly positioned to add value to other people, you need to take care of yourself first. So I'm married and I have 4 kids and I'm running 2 businesses, right? So unless I'm taking care of myself, I can't take care of my wife. And unless I'm taking care of my wife, I can't take care of my family, my kids. And unless I'm taking care of my kids, I can't take care of my clients or my community, right? So you've got to take care of yourself first. And it's not a selfish thing. It's actually selfless. And you've got to create space for your significant other or your spouse to do the same thing. And so my wife and I together created a tool called the 6 Bridges to Personal Growth and Well-Being, which help you hone in and crystallize where you're at in each one of these 6 areas so that you're properly positioned for success. And those are faith, family, fitness, friends, finances, and fun, in that order. Okay. Faith, because you need, like for me, I have a faith in God and I believe that I'm living into the potential that God's created for me. But there's some people that don't have a faith in God, right? But guess what? In order to accomplish anything, they have to have faith in another person. You had to have faith that I was going to show up today, you know?
Yes.
You know, faith, family is obvious. You know, my family is so critical, and family is the unit, is the core unit that is going to sustain you and to hold you up during hard times. You need a family to fall back in. And maybe your family, your actual biological family aren't those people, because maybe there's a lot of negative baggage or whatever it is. Well, first of all, if you can begin to build bridges to heal those things, then you should, okay? But if you can't, then you need to build a family. You need to create a family of your own. Outside of that, fitness, for obvious reasons, you've got to be mentally fit, you've got to be physically fit, you've got to be spiritually fit. Friends, I mean, you've got to spend time with friends. You've got to have conversations and go outside of yourself and serve each other and build that community. Finances, because you've got to be able to pay for all of the stuff that you've got to do and that you want to do in the world. And then let's see, we got faith. I'm forgetting my own 6 bridges. We got faith, family, fitness, finances, friends. Oh, of course. And fun. Dude, you've got to have fun, man.
Yes,
You've got to make
absolutely.
time to go do things, to have fun, to have create great memories and experiences. And so that's kind of the first part of being properly positioned for success in the peak performance framework. The second part of the P is recognizing the role that you play in other people's stories. The number one reason why relationships fail, whether they are personal, intimate relationships or business relationships, is because you or I assume the wrong role in someone's story. Oftentimes we try to come in with our solution, and we try to, in that case, play the role of the hero. Well, guess what? That's going to fail miserably. Because in those stories, when you're trying to serve another person, the solution that you're bringing to the table should never be positioned as the hero. It should always be positioned as the guide. You should always make that person feel and understand and believe that they are the hero.
That makes total sense. And, that clears a lot of doubts, and, it's a good framework. And I think it explains in very much detail when we were talking about everything comes from inside. Everything that you said comes from inside. We're not talking about you need the weather, you need the city, you need the car, the house, that's nothing of the stuff that you mentioned, yet that's like a lot of people is going after. So that's the number one reason why they're not finding their purpose and they're not fulfilling their lives, because they're looking outside when they should be looking inside.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
I mean, you're not going to be fulfilled by those things, because once you get that thing, whatever it is, you're going to be chasing the next thing, right? And so my deal is that I'm going to choose to be fulfilled right now. I could have more money, I could make more money, I could work harder, but am I willing to suffer for that? Am I willing to give up on experiences and relationships and sleep? And, for the most part, the answer is no. I'd rather choose to spend time with my kids than time doing something else. So, and I may miss an opportunity because of that. You've got to have the self-control, the self-discipline, and you've got to believe that you are worth enough to say no to certain things.
that's awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to share all this with us. And looking back in your journey and trying to, create this amazing platform, the Impact Entrepreneur. And, everybody listening, you guys need to go and check it out. The podcast is amazing. And, how was that journey at the beginning? How were the first few months starting this, trying to come up with basically everything from scratch. Was there any fear? Was there doubts? Or was it all happiness and pink through it all?
No, like I had no idea what I was doing. When I thought it was like get a microphone and plug it into a computer and you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I thought. But dude, I mean, there's so much more that goes into it. And I had to realize right away that I had to understand what my skill sets were and what my skill sets weren't. And so like editing and all that stuff, like I could develop the skill set for that. I could totally do it if I wanted to and if I had the time, but I didn't. I realized that like right away after I did my first couple of interviews before I launched, I'm like, dude, this is going to take hours. Like, and like for me, because I didn't know necessarily what I was doing. So I'm like, I'm running a full-time business here. I don't have time to do this. So I had to hire that out. That was a lesson that I learned. And I'm like, okay, am I willing to suffer for this? Am I willing to take some of my dinero and, and pay someone to do this? And the answer was yes, because I believed in what I was creating. Right. And so that was a lesson that I learned. I also, I took a lot of time. So I made the decision in December to launch the podcast. And then it was kind of like, January by the time I really crystallized exactly what I was going to do. And then I started recording. I actually signed up for John Lee Dumas's free podcast course, freepodcastcourse.com, little JLD plug there for you. And I'm like, I'm going to follow what he says, and so I had like 16 or 17 interviews like in the bank ready to go on launch. And that was huge because that gave me space to do a couple things. One, to take a breath, right? And kind of map out where I'm going. And two, to say no to people that weren't going to be valuable on my show. I mean, like, I'm sure, your show just launched recently, but, very shortly you'll start getting, I already know that, in fact, I already know because you posted a picture on Facebook that you're already getting pinged regularly by potential guests. And you have a responsibility, and it's a big one, to filter out people, because your audience is taking 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes of their time and listening to your show, and you want to give them the highest quality and the best guest experience that's possible, right? So you can't possibly take on everybody that hits you up. It's the same thing with me, and I have to feel inspired by what they're doing in order to get on my show, because really what's happening on my show is like I am like a student and they're the teacher, and I'm learning from them. I'm trying to get like better myself, and I'm inviting my audience into that conversation, and it's a really, I treat that responsibility. I take that responsibility very seriously.
It's amazing you brought that up, because it is legit, and you start immediately getting people. And even though you're constantly, because I'm trying to push it on social media, I'm trying to promote it and everything, and most of the people that see it, they understand, this show is for bringing successful entrepreneurs like yourself and, sharing their journey and story. And, I'm still getting, pinged by the VP of a company or the director of marketing of another company. It's like, and I said it on episode 0, it's not about what you've done or how much money you make or what your position is. It's about bringing, entrepreneurial stories. I don't even care, how much money you make or anything. It's not about that. It's what have you, all the struggles that you went through, right? I know VPs and director of marketing, it's a good, if that's your passion, go for it. But this show it's pure entrepreneurial stories. And because I'm looking to inspire others, and you're right there, you're trying to filter them. It's a little tricky, especially at the beginning when, I the first few weeks I was trying to look for the first few guests, and thank God now we're pretty booked, and And now I have that ability to really filter, really screen out people that are coming in the show.
Absolutely. Yeah. It puts you in a really good position to serve your community.
It does, yes. So, what does it look like to run, full time running your company, and now full time because it's demanding to have your own platform. How does it look like for you when it comes to the whole balance thing, trying to balance your time, your family, everything in life? How is that? Is it easy? Is it hard? What do you think about
I mean,
that?
it's always challenging, and there is no such thing as balance, right? There's an attempt at balance, but
Right.
that's why like those I use the concept of the six bridges, right? Because there's no two bridges that are alike. Your six bridges are going to look different than mine. Sometimes there's a short bridge, a very short and very narrow bridge. Sometimes there's a huge bridge that you've got to cross over, and those will change throughout your life, right? And you've got to be disciplined about your vision. You got to focus in on what it is that you're trying to accomplish in the world, and then you've got to create the space around that. And so sometimes there are days where it's a little bit more impact entrepreneur platform heavy, other days it's all Flynn Wealth strategy stuff, and or there may be weeks where I don't do anything with the podcast or the impact entrepreneur platform. Next week I'm not going to do anything with either because I'm going to be on vacation, right?
I love it.
um but the reality is that you are in control. You've got to believe that, right? And so you've got so I basically only do my interviews for my show on Mondays or Fridays in the morning between before noon, right? And I don't do anything midweek typically, Tuesday through Thursday. That's all reserved for Flynn Wealth strategy stuff and client meetings and serving my like clients and community. And Mondays I don't do anything. I Mondays are my prep day for work for my business, and I meet with my team, manage our projects and everything. And if you set up yourself with these disciplined schedules, then you create freedom to go do these other things. Jocko Willink is a really famous Navy SEAL, and he wrote a book called Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. And his main mantra is that discipline equals freedom. And so if you're trying to fit all of these things in and you're bouncing all over your calendar, you're going to feel very stressed out. But if you actually create focused time and then some free time and then some like buffer time where you can float in between being focused on something and working on a passion project, then you're going to feel incredibly free. And it's going to give you the mental space and the emotional space to do what it is that you want to do in the world.
That's amazing, man. I'm gonna have to replay those few words again, because when you're starting out, you're trying to put systems in place, you're trying to figure out things, which is where I was and still am right now, trying to figure it out. But I feel like I'm getting ready to start. Okay, well, this day is this day is this, because it gets crazy. It's too
It
much
does.
stuff. Yeah, too much stuff to
Yeah.
do. There's not enough
Yeah.
time. So
And your brain is trying to jump back and forth between one thing and the next thing, and you're just gonna it doesn't like that.
right, yeah. So with all the ups and downs that you went on both your, the Impact Entrepreneur platform and your wealth company, your financial company, and all those ups and downs and horrible moments that you went through, did you ever have any thoughts like, okay, well, this is not working, I'm just getting ready to quit, let's go do something else, let's go, there's got to be another way to do it, maybe another business, maybe do something else? Did you ever have
Yeah,
those kind of thoughts?
absolutely. Yeah, during the financial crisis, I mean, I thought in 2010, I was like ready to call it quits, with the financial services business. And I'm part of a mastermind of other second generation advisors around the country. There's 9 of us, and we meet We have quarterly conference calls, and then we meet in person once a year to talk about best practices and have fun together. And in 2010, our 2011 meeting, I had planned on going to that meeting and telling them, I'm done. I'm calling it quits. This is just too hard and emotionally draining. And we had a guest speaker named Christy Mueller, one of the top financial services professionals in the country. And she asked me this question. She said, Mike, have you seen the movie City Slickers? And I said, yeah, I'd seen the movie. And she said, do you remember that question that Curly asked? He said, what's your one thing? And so she said, so Mike, what's your one thing? And in that moment, I realized that I had been pursuing all of the wrong things. I talked about it earlier, the material stuff, the assets, the status, etc. Right? In that moment, I realized that my one thing is my family, my wife and my children. And as long as I'm doing everything right by them, everything else will fall into place as it should. And that gave me the ability to come back to California, to come back to the business, and to put my nose to the grindstone and hustle and be free to pursue helping other people become the hero of their story and let everything else happen. If I do well, I do well, and I do well by giving. I do well by serving others. I do well by being the guide and not trying to play the hero. That's why the financial services industry at large is one of the least trusted, because the advisors or the institutions try to play the role of the hero when they should really be playing the role of the guide. And so that was a game changer for me. And, I as it relates to the Impact Entrepreneur platform, the answer is yeah. There's days where I'm like, gosh, is this worth it? And I was just actually having one of those moments not too long ago when I got a phone call from a friend of mine who, she left me a voicemail that was like, man, I'm so proud of you. You're doing so great. This is so awesome. And the message that you're sharing is so powerful. And then I did an interview yesterday with a guy last night on the East Coast who is a fan of the show. And he has a podcast called Uncharted Performance, which is a great podcast. It's a fitness podcast. And he shared with me how much my show has impacted him and how much it's meant to him. And so, yeah, heck yeah. That's what it's all about, right? But it's important to get that feedback, right? Because otherwise you can feel very alone, right? And so it's critical to go out and seek that affirmation to make sure that what you're doing is having the effect that you desire it to have. Don't look at all of the vanity statistics, like the likes, the social media, even the download numbers. Like, don't focus on the download numbers so much. Focus on the people that are reaching out to you and saying, dude, this is good stuff. This is helpful. That's what fuels my fire. That's what keeps me going. The reality is that whether you have 200 downloads or 1,000 downloads or whatever, if someone invited you to come into a room of 200 entrepreneurs at a hotel and speak on a stage, would you say no? You would be pumped up, man. So if your show on a week gets only 200 downloads, you should be stoked, because that is 200 people inviting you onto the stage of their living room, of their computer, of their earbuds, whatever it might be. You are speaking from a stage. And that is advice that I got from Pat Flynn, who has one of the most amazing podcasts, most successful podcasts, Smart Passive Income. He was talking about the fact that that's how we should look at it when we're have a podcast and maybe only 200 people listen, which, especially when you're starting out, that those are the numbers that you should expect. Those 200 people have invited you onto the stage of their living room, and you should feel very proud about that. And you should feel like you have a lot of responsibility to those 200 people.
It does, and I'm happy that you brought that up because that was the one thing that I said, and I'm gonna be transparent like the show. So I want to continue to keep posting and sharing the journey of how the idea came and how it's progressing. But actually, I think it was yesterday that I posted. We had 100 downloads, but it's like I would have posted this even if it was just one download because that would have mean that I reached one person that if I didn't have the show, I wouldn't done. So
Right.
it's not about the numbers. I'm actually trying to get to the first email where somebody emails me and they say, "Hey, you know what? This got me to take the chance to quit my job and focus on my side hustle full time." I'm eagerly waiting for that email, man. Hopefully it
Yeah.
happens soon.
Yeah. It'll happen, and it's good that you're being patient. It's good that you're focusing on the value that you're trying to provide, because all of the other stuff will happen. Like if you focus on monetizing, it's not going to work
Right.
if that's your core focus.
Right. And see, that's the difference. And if you start a podcast to monetize it, well, good luck with that.
Yeah, yeah. I
You're gonna
mean,
drive yourself crazy
yeah,
before you
you're
can
gonna,
actually get a buck out of
yeah,
it.
totally. So I got rid of that desire or that plan like right away. That plan just went away, and I I like within the first month, I'm like, nope, I'm not. My core focus is not going to be monetizing this podcast. It's going to be adding value. It's going to be helping people believe that they're capable of achieving something, and that leaning into their full potential and purpose.
Well, Mike, I mean, looks like you've come a long way, man. I'm very proud of everything you've done and everything you're doing. I know you're in the right path to success, and there's great things awaiting for you for where you're headed. And kudos to you. Keep hustling, keep doing everything. And I just want to the hustlers that are listening right now, if you could share with them what would you think is your secret to success, to what everything you've achieved, what would be the one thing that you have that has helped you through the journey?
The one thing that I would say is that the only thing that matters is your choices, is your choice. So I interviewed this guy named Dr. Lou Holtz, who's one of the most famous college football coaches in history, and I asked him a similar question, and he said, "Mike, there's 422,000 words in the English vocabulary, and the most important word among them is choice." And so I would choose not to focus on being successful. I would choose to focus on being fulfilled right now in what I'm doing, in so that when I am successful, I'm still fulfilled, right? You see a lot of successful people who are miserable, right? I, but I'm choosing to be fulfilled and to enjoy the journey and to look at the adversity and the challenges and the weeds as opportunities, because without those things, without the weeds, you could not be able to appreciate the flowers.
I love that, man. So moving, we're going to change gears a little bit from your story and from your amazing journey to what I like to call the hassle round. We're going to play a little word game. Basically just going to give you a word and you're going to say aloud the first word that comes to mind. Does
Let's
that
do
sound
it.
like a plan?
Let's
All
do it.
right. I love it. Hustle.
Hustle. I don't like that word.
Okay.
I think that so if you said hustle, I would say dangerous.
Work.
Work.
What
Boring.
come? There you go. Employee.
Community.
Boss.
Leader.
Rules.
Break them.
College.
Important.
Fear.
Can't see you.
Weakness.
Become strength.
Strengths.
Develop them.
Motivation.
Means get up and move.
And last but not least, books.
Knowledge is power.
Awesome. Man, I think you were the fastest ever in the hassle round.
Oh, nice, nice,
Not,
nice.
not, not that we're counting time or anything, but I feel like that was super quick. That went so smooth. So before we get ready to leave here, man, is there any hustle quote that you can tell to all the listeners who, they might be on the fence trying to decide if they should quit their job and go with, follow their dreams and their passion, or maybe they already started a business, but they're still not where they want to be. Some words that you could share with them to keep pushing and to keep them motivated.
Yeah, can I share two?
Absolutely.
So the first is a quote by a guy named Charles Reed, I believe, and it's this: sow an act, excuse me, sow a thought, reap an act. Sow an act, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap your character, and sow your character, reap your destiny. That's a very, very powerful quote, and it all begins with our thoughts, right? What we believe that we're capable of doing. The second is, and I shared this one second because it follows the first, and it's a dangerous thing, and it is this: comparison is the thief of joy, and that's by Theodore Roosevelt. And dude, we all compare ourselves all the time. He's more fit than me. They have more money. Whatever. His podcast is better, and that steals your joy. It just ruins it for you, right? So keep that in mind, that comparison is the thief of joy.
It does, and I love that quote, man. I hope everybody that is listening to us to start to get this in their mind. When you compare yourself to somebody else, that is going to be a bad day for sure.
For sure.
So
For sure.
yeah, so stop doing it and just stay in your lane. Do whatever you need to do, but stay in your lane.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I'm very proud and very grateful, Mike, to have you here and to share your journey and your story. And just for all the hustlers that are listening to us right now, if they want to, get in contact or follow what you're doing, follow the Impact Entrepreneur podcast and your book and your platform, how can they reach out and how can they stay connected with you?
Yeah, so they could the podcast is available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google. Just search for The Impact Entrepreneur Show. You can also find it online at theimpactentrepreneur.net. I'm available on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at The Impact Mike. I'm also on Facebook. You can find me there. I'm digging Instagram lately with the stories and all that stuff. And if people want to learn a little bit more about our family business, they can visit flynnwealthstrategies.com. And I will also include, I'll give you a link to where people can go and they can download the 6 Bridges to Personal Growth and Well-Being, as well as another tool called the Clarity of Purpose Scorecard that they can use as a resource to help them crystallize what's important to them and what they want to accomplish.
Awesome, man. I would love to share that with all the hustlers that are listening. And we'll make sure that we link everything at thehustleshow.co/TSH16 so that
Awesome.
everybody can go in there and, get straight connected to your podcast and to your tools that I'm eagerly, waiting for them so I can go through them too.
Awesome. Yeah. Dude, I want some feedback. So let me know. Let me know what you think.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I really appreciate you just taking the time, man. I'm very grateful to have you here and to, being open and transparent today with us, to all the hustlers that are listening, and for sharing your story. And I wish you nothing but success. And I know you're in the right path and, things are going to explode and there's big things for you, man. So keep doing it and keep hustling.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be on your show and hope that I provided some value for you and your audience today.
So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode 16 of The Hustle Show with Mike Flynn. I had a blast and I learned a lot from this man. He's an amazing person. And, I've been devouring his podcast. And I hope you join his journey and you go listen to his podcast. It's amazing and everything that he's doing. And I'm just very grateful to have the opportunity to had this chat with Mike, and I wish you nothing but success. And I hope you join us for our next episode, as we're going to have another amazing story to share with you. Okay. Keep hustling.
Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the Hustle Show audio experience. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And even if you didn't, make sure you subscribe to the podcast right now. It's still free. Visit thehustleshow.co for all the show notes and to watch the video experience of this episode. We'll see you soon.